It is my delight to be able to invite up Bill Berger, and it's a delight to invite up all of those who share their community voice with us. But 2 weeks ago, we were pretty sure it wasn't going to be Bill Berger. But God, in his miraculous ways, knew that Bill had a word that needed to be spoken today. And he certainly can speak. Bill, welcome.
Thank you. I alluded to this last week. You may be sorry you prayed my voice back. All right. God is good.
Yes, He is.
All the time?
God is good.
So some of you have seen me up here before. Some of you may be saying, oh no. What is he going to do this time?
That would be us.
Yeah, I deliberately don't let my wife see what I'm going to talk about every time I speak. One of the books that Leslie and I hold dear is Louis L'Amour's autobiography, Education of a Wandering Man. In that book, he writes about how he leaves school at 15 to see the world, how he lives as a hobo on the Southern Pacific Railroad, as a cattle skinner in Texas, as a merchant seaman in both Singapore and the West Indies, as an itinerant bare-knuckled prize fighter all across small-town America. It is a story of a one-of-a-kind life lived to the fullest. A life that inspired a great many books. So what does this have to do with me? Well, for one thing, I like hats. For another thing, I am calling this little talk The Spiritual Journey of a Wandering Burger Man. My spiritual journey started out with a major handicap. I didn't grow up with much money or many material things, and this is not the handicap. It is a common enough condition that often makes church attractive. My first handicap, as I see it now, is that I had an amazing family, so I didn't feel a need for a church family. I have very good friends, so I didn't feel a need for a church community. I grew up confident in myself and in my future, so I didn't see a great need for God in my life. I was not exactly an atheist. I had a strong moral foundation. Trustworthy, loyal, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and for the most part, reverent. The second handicap was that my many religious friends were not making a very compelling argument for religion. My Catholic and Jewish friends were selling guilt, and I was not in the market to buy that. My Protestant friends were busy being unworthy of God's great sacrifice, while at the same time singing love songs to the ghost. My Muslim friends were consumed by the unending struggle between their human desires and God's great plan. The pagans I knew had a fairly attractive pitch, with their nature worship and their focus on a balanced life. It seemed fairly attractive until you realized that among my friends, they seemed to be some of the most unbalanced. Other than their friendship with me, the only thing my religious friends seemed to have in common was a certainty that they were right, and for the most part, that everyone else was bound to some form of eternal torment. For my part, I would rather go camping on weekends. And I did. A lot. Women were at the core of the next phase of my spiritual wanderings. Specifically, my desire to be with them, and their seemingly inexplicable desire to attend worship services. I learned a lot more about several organized religions during this phase of my life. I also learned a lot about patience. I had studied theater, So I was pretty good at learning my expected role, and I didn't embarrass my girlfriends or their families too often. I did miss my weekends camping. God showed up in the next phase of my spiritual wanderings, although I didn't recognize him at first, which is pretty common. At this point, I am dating an Irish Catholic girl, and she is making me crazy. There are enough Catholic churches in our neighborhood that her family treats them like fast food restaurants. We drop in on one or other based on the day of the week, the hour of the day, the length of the service, or whatever is closest when we remember that God will be mad at us if we don't show up. We would show up, do the bare minimum, and then go someplace to eat, even when the church was serving food afterwards. That little Irish girl drove me nuts for 7 years. So I went ahead and married her. I attended Catholic boot camp so that we could be married in a Catholic church. I attended Mass. She conducted the choir. I played my role. I sat in the pew. I knew no one at the church. I missed camping on the weekends. It was sometime later that I recognized that God had helped me to make the smartest decision of my life. We followed a paycheck into the next phase of my spiritual wanderings. Did you know that Presbyterians pay better than Catholics? We do. One of Leslie's college professors was conducting the choir at Canyon Hills Presbyterian Church. And when she was moving out of state, she suggested Leslie as a possible replacement. Leslie became your minister of music. I became the husband of the minister of music. It took me forever to learn how to spell Presbyterian. I was prepared to play my role again. I sat in a pew on Sundays. I knew nobody except Mike Landreth, who called me one of his pet agnostics. And he called Leslie a recovering Catholic. I was prepared to miss my weekend camping trips again. Then Lisa spoke about an adult Mexico mission trip. It sounded like camping with some hard work thrown in. God was all over that trip. But I've told that story often. You'll have to ask me about it on the patio if you'd like to hear it again. In short, I went down to Mexico as a tourist. I came back as a missionary, and you are all attending my church. That's where this phase of my spiritual wanderings has taken me. I have a church. I know most of you by name. I am as active as I possibly can be. I recognize God's presence in my life. The best choices I have made, the toughest times I've experienced, and all those everyday things in between. Last year, I was blessed with cancer. And you heard me right. Because of my cancer, I have had a year off work to be with my family. I've had the opportunity to recognize angels in my life and to be an angel to some. I have experienced the love and friendship of so many people. My family, my church, my neighbors, my friends, and even strangers. I have experienced great difficulty and pain, which was an opportunity to learn what I can endure and what I am capable of overcoming. I have the courage to pursue a post-cancer career in public speaking. When my story is eventually over, and a long time from now, God willing, like Louis L'Amour's, I want it to be known as a one-of-a-kind life lived to its fullest. I am filled with the joy of life, and I want for nothing. God is good.
all the time.
All the time?
God is good.
Thank you for listening.